Hi everyone, and welcome to Core Lecture 21. Today we'll discuss components of an argument. Before we begin, you'll need access to the following materials for today's lecture assignment. You'll need access to your weekly homework document, as well as access to your Project 3 materials. The purpose and goals for today's lecture are as follows. We'll identify key components for successful arguments. We'll discuss the role of each component, and we'll explore methods for integrating each component successfully. As I mentioned in Core Lecture 20, an argument goes beyond just a simple one-and-done statement of here's what I think about, this particular topic. Rather, an argument is a well-developed entrance into an ongoing conversation. So when we craft a well-rounded and effective argument, there are several components that we want to ensure that we're including. We want to make sure that we've got a thesis or a claim. We want to make sure that we've got reasons, warrants, evidence, as well as counterarguments and rebuttals. Now let's explore each one of these components in greater detail. First, we'll start off with the thesis or claim. It's important to note that, especially in academic writing, the term thesis and claim are typically used interchangeably, and I myself am guilty of this quite a bit. So do keep that in mind, that if I say claim, I mean thesis, and if I say thesis, I mean claim. And so I do use those terms synonymously. Now, overall, the thesis/claim is the argument that you're making or the idea that you are proposing. So it is essentially what your paper is about. You can also see the thesis or claim as a means for guiding the development of your argument paper. So essentially, everything that you include, all content from the sources you cite to the language that you use to the way that you organize your argument, are all going to come back to support your thesis or claim. When we compose this very central and important element of the argument, it's a fairly straightforward there's a fairly straightforward way to compose it that I think is especially effective for academic writing, and that is the topic plus point of view structure. When we use the topic plus point of view structure, we are telling our readers, okay, here is the topic that I'm focusing on, and here is the specific take I am proposing on it, or that I am suggesting. Here is the certain way I want you to think about this topic, or here is a certain way I want you to behave regarding this topic. So what that does is that allows us to officially enter into the conversation in a way that's unique to us, in a way that is unique to how we respond to whatever topic we happen to be looking at. So let's look at this example. The Miss America organization should change the swimsuit portion of the competition to activewear. So this could function as our overall thesis or claim. And so we see clearly here this topic plus point of view structure. So we've got the topic that is in this sort of green, tealish color, and our topic will be the Miss America organization. That indicates to the reader, this is what my argument concerns, this specifically. Now then, we've got our point of view. Should change the swimsuit portion of the competition to activewear. So we've got our topic, the Miss America organization, and that can be so broad. There are a number of ways that we could discuss and engage in dialogue regarding that one topic. But the point of view really says to the reader, this is how I am specifically going to discuss this topic. In this case, the Miss America organization, is I'm going to support my view that the swimsuit portion of the competition should be changed to activewear. So what I'd like you to do for the lecture assignment is I'd like you to compose a claim or a thesis using the structure that we just discussed, the topic plus point of view. Now keep in mind, you can use this for your project for drafting materials. So start tinkering around based off of the research that you came across during projects 2 and 3. What argument would you make on the topic that you're looking at? What is your specific point of view? What do you want to get your readers to think, or how do you want your readers to act regarding a specific topic? The next component that we want to look at will be the reasons. Now, this is going to be a means for developing and organizing an argument. Now, the best way to think about what a reason does and how a reason functions in an overall argument is it answers the why question. So, I in the earlier thesis suggested that the Miss America pageant should ditch swimwear and go with activewear in the competition. So it's very reasonable that a reader might say, why? And so when you're developing these reasons, you want to imagine your reader saying, okay, why? Then you as the writer can say, well, because, and then you will essentially provide those reasons for why the reader should support your thesis or your claim. Now, in academic writing, it's important to include 2 to 4 reasons to support a claim, with 3 really being the sweet number there. If you only have 1 reason, the argument looks weak. Even 2, it's a bit iffy. 3 to 4, again, that's going to be your sweet spot. Anything more than 5, it gets difficult for the reader to remember all of those reasons. And so you want to respond with, well, because, and see if you can identify, again, anywhere between 2 and 4 reasons that you could give your reader for why they should support your overall thesis. So let's look at this example. The Miss America organization should change the swimsuit portion of the competition to activewear because, we're imagining again that the reader has asked us why. It emphasizes a healthy lifestyle. It places the value of exercise on well-being rather than personal appearance, and it does not place women into an objectified position. So we've got 3 reasons. Our reader has hypothetically asked us, well, why should the Miss America organization embrace activewear over swimwear? And we have said, well, because healthy lifestyle, emphasis on well-being, and removing women from being objectified. So reasons 1, 2, and 3. Returning to our lecture assignment, on your document, I want you to compose 3 reasons the audience should accept your claim. So you just composed your thesis. Now pretend someone has said, okay, well, why? And anything that follows, well, because, reasons 1, reason 2, reason 3. Moving on to the next component, we want to look at warrants. Warrants are often said to be one of the trickiest parts or trickiest components of an argument to effectively write in especially longer academic pieces. However, we've already been writing warrants to a great extent in our previous writing assignments. We just haven't called them warrants quite yet. Rather, we've been really calling them statements of relevance. So what a warrant does is it explains how and why the reasons and evidence support your claim. Now, you can also think of a warrant as a bridge. So remember, you have been doing this whenever you introduce a source, to say, okay, I'm using a direct quote, a paraphrase, a summary, whatever the case may be, and this is why this summary, this direct quote, this paraphrase is relevant to what I'm saying or the purpose of my writing. And a warrant essentially does that. However, it's not just relegated or restricted to whenever you use a source. Rather, it can be used to, connecting parts of your own original text, namely through reasons and claims. So two things that you have originally come up with. So let's look at this example here. The Miss America organization should change the swimsuit portion of the competition to activewear because it does not place women into an objectified position. Okay, we've got our thesis and a specific reason. Enter the warrant. When young women see contestants in activewear, they can identify value in their physical bodies intrinsically rather than viewing it as an artifact for others. So we've made that connection of saying, okay, well, here's how this specific reason supports my overall thesis or claim. And so again, we've already been doing warrants to a great extent, but again, especially in this type of argumentative academic writing, they are not just restricted to whenever we use the words from a source. Let's now talk about evidence and how evidence can fit into that. So an evidence explains why the claims and reasons are acceptable. Now, this is where we are going to incorporate outside sources into our own work. So this is basically saying, okay, yeah, we should do this because look at the research so-and-so did. It proves that my idea is really good, or it proves that there is value into what I'm suggesting based off of their own studies. Evidence, depending on the type of topic that you're looking at and the audience that you're writing for, can either be quantitative or qualitative. And in fact, in most academic works, there's typically a very thoughtful blend of both. And also, evidence provides entry into the ongoing discussion. So it's basically saying, other people are saying this, here's how, their ideas support what I'm saying, here's how their ideas challenge or encourage me to refine the argument that I'm making. So much like the synthesis that you did in Project 2, we can sort of situate our evidence in a similar way in Project 4. So, going along with our example, we have the Miss America organization should change the swimsuit portion of the competition to activewear because it emphasizes a healthy lifestyle. Okay, thesis, reason. In fact, a study conducted by Harvard University reveals that in the weeks following pageants like Miss America and Miss USA, young women search for quick methods for losing weight twice as much as they search for methods for maintaining a healthy lifestyle. This demonstrates the current practice of a swimsuit portion promotes negative body maintenance practices. So with all of that being said, we have our thesis, we have our specific reason, but then we're also saying, hey, look, there's a Harvard University study that basically backs what I'm saying, but then we also include that warrant toward the end that says, this is how it's relevant to, the argument that I'm making or the purpose for which I am writing. So what I'd like you to do now for the lecture assignment is I'd like you to select one reason for your claim and support it with evidence that you gathered while composing your annotated bibliography. I then want you to compose a warrant to connect either the reason to the claim or the evidence to the reason or the claim. So however you want to approach this, again, you can think of this as a very generative lecture assignment. So content that you could really use either as a springboard for Project 4 or that you could very realistically use in your Project 4 draft materials. Let's now move on to the final components that we'll discuss, and that will be namely the counter-argument and the rebuttal. The counter-argument, that's going to be your naysayer. Oftentimes I hear, why on earth would I want to include a naysayer? Why would I want to give room on my page to someone who very clearly disagrees with what I have to say? So if we think about a counter-argument as a naysayer or a work that articulates an idea or argument that complicates yours, You also want to be aware that the presence may make it difficult for the audience to accept your claim. So, especially if you're writing on a more popular topic, readers may come into your argument already having thoughts to say, well, what about this? Yeah, sure, you're arguing this, but what about this other thing that I just read? What about this argument that so-and-so makes that's also highly popular? So readers do come in with their own knowledge and their own experiences, and typically, again, with more popular topics, you can get a general sense of what counter arguments the readers will be bringing with them into your work. So, so if we look at this example here, we could set up a counter argument to read something like, counter to my findings, a recent study found that the swimsuit portion of the Miss America competition had no negative effects on the self-esteem of young women. So, maybe someone's coming into this argument and saying, well, I've actually read studies that it doesn't really have that much of an effect. So how do you respond to that? And your readers will very likely respond if they have a counter argument that they are aware of or that they have internalized. Count on them bringing that in and be ready to address it. How do we address it? We address it through a rebuttal. This is your way to respond to the counter argument. So you don't, when I say introduce a counter argument, I'm not just saying leave it there and saying, hey, yes, I recognize other people think differently, but you want to take it as an opportunity to engage thoughtfully with that counter argument. You want to take it as an opportunity to respond through the lens of your own argument to what someone else is saying, especially if they are suggesting something that is counter to your own beliefs. Now, when we respond to the counter argument through our rebuttal, it's important that we should utilize civil language and really embrace an adversarial model of an individual being an adversary and not an enemy. The goal of your rebuttal should be to demonstrate the counter-argument shortcomings as a way to basically say to the audience, yes, I understand your concerns, but I've looked into it, and here's how my argument, nullifies that concern that you have. So, recalling back to our earlier example, contrary to my findings, a recent study found that swimsuit portion of the Miss America competition had no negative effects on the self-esteem of young women. So there was our counter argument. Here comes the rebuttal. However, this study was funded by swimwear companies that outfit many of the contestants, allowing us to question the quality of the study and its findings. So this is where those CRAP principles really come into play when we're assessing source credibility. Is to say, is the information credible? Is it relevant? Is it timely? So these are all things that we want to think of when we are engaging with a counter argument. And so when we provide a rebuttal, it's really your opportunity, like I said, to say to your audience, yes, I understand the concerns that you bring in with you to this topic, but here is how I, through my argument, respond to that. And hopefully, again, nullify those concerns that you have. So in this case, they're saying, yeah, we understand that you might be aware of studies existing, saying, no, there's really no issue, but it's important to remember that these studies were done by people who have a financial interest in the swimsuit competition remaining a thing and remaining relevant. As of right now, I imagine you probably haven't encountered a counter argument quite yet. Maybe you have. Maybe you can refer back to your Project 2 and Project 3 materials. Maybe there's a solid source there to serve as a counter argument that you could compose a rebuttal to. But under the assumption that you haven't really narrowed that down quite yet because it's so early on in this unit, do not worry about identifying a counter argument or a rebuttal for the lecture assignment. But as you continue your research, as you continue to draft, I want you to be actively thinking about what are some concerns that your readers are going to bring into your argument, and how can you thoughtfully and civilly address those through a rebuttal. For this week's weekly homework, you'll want to include the Core Lecture 21 summary and assignment. Overall, you'll want to include the summaries and assignments for Core Lectures 20 and 21, as well as a mini lecture of your choice, and that is all due to the appropriate assignment submission folder on Canvas before 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, November 3rd. If you have any questions or if there are any concepts you'd like to discuss further, please feel free to reach out to me via Canvas DM. All right, everyone, until next time.